All right, let's dive deep today. We're tackling Bitcoin and blockchains.
Sounds exciting.
It is. It can sound a little, sci-fi at times.
Yeah.
But by the end of this deep dive, I promise you'll be able to impress your friends. You'll be dropping all this knowledge.
The goal is to really understand it, not just, the buzzwords.
Exactly. And you wanted to know how Bitcoin could maybe even change the world.
It has that potential for sure.
It does. So we'll see how it all kind of fits together. We're even going to touch on some cool stuff from the latest SORA Economic Forum.
That's right. We're going to look at how this tech could lead to, a future where the economy is decentralized.
Ooh, decentralized.
Run by the people, not the big institutions. With platforms like SORA and XOR.
Okay, I'm already intrigued. But first, the basics.
Always a good place to start.
Why did Bitcoin even become a thing? It's not like we were all just wishing we had another way to pay for our, online orders, right?
It wasn't just about creating another payment method. It was meant to solve problems. With traditional money, especially online. Think about it. Sending cash over the internet, it's just not practical.
Yeah, that's true. You can't really put a dollar bill in an email.
Exactly.
And haven't you noticed that with most digital payments, we end up giving away so much information, our names, our addresses, everything.
Yeah, you have to trust a lot of third parties, banks, payment processors. They need to verify who you are.
Right. It's like giving someone the keys to your house and hoping they don't throw a party while you're gone.
Exactly. And that can be risky. We've all heard the stories about credit card theft, data breaches. It can be a real mess.
Ugh, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin was supposed to be a way out of all that.
In a way, yeah. It was designed to be like digital cash, cutting out those middlemen, giving you more control over your money.
So no more banks breathing down your neck.
Potentially. Now, Bitcoin, it isn't exactly a currency, at least not in the traditional sense.
Oh, okay. Then what is it, like a digital collectible?
It acts more like a digital asset. Some people compare it to, digital gold.
Ah, that's why everyone's always talking about Bitcoin as an investment. But if it's not really a currency, then why are so many people buying and selling it?
Good question. There are a few reasons. One is its limited supply.
Limited supply.
Yeah. Unlike governments that can print more money whenever they want.
Oh, right. They just fire up the printing presses.
Exactly. But there's a fixed amount of Bitcoin that can ever exist.
So it's like a rare beanie baby, but it's code.
You could think of it that way. And that scarcity makes it appealing to some investors. Of course, that also contributes to its price volatility.
Oh, right. The price goes up and down like crazy.
Exactly. A lot of factors play into that, but the limited supply is definitely one of them.
I've seen headlines declaring Bitcoin dead. And then the next week, it's skyrocketing. It's a wild ride.
It's definitely been a roller coaster. And central banks, they're not exactly thrilled about the prospect of a decentralized currency.
They probably see it as a threat to their power.
You could say that.
It's like those old taxi companies trying to shut down ride-sharing apps. They saw the change coming and didn't like it one bit.
It's a good analogy. There's definitely a potential conflict of interest there.
For sure. But before we get too deep into all of that, let's talk about money itself for a second. Like way back in the day, we didn't always have credit cards and Venmo. What did people use before, like coins and paper money?
You're talking about bartering, right?
Yeah. Remember learning about that in history class? Like trading a cow for a bunch of chickens?
It's the most basic form of exchange, but it can get really complicated.
Try finding someone who wants your cow. A&D has the exact number of chickens you're looking for.
It's a logistical nightmare. That's why people started using things like shells or precious metals as a common form of money. It simplified things.
Right. Like those old Roman coins, the denarius, I think. We learned about how they kept adding less and less silver to them.
Debasement. It's a classic problem.
Like watering down your juice to make it last longer, but it just ends up tasting bad.
Exactly. And it leads to inflation, where the value of money goes down. And that's a problem that's persisted throughout history.
It always seems like the everyday people get hurt the most when that happens.
Unfortunately, that's often the case. So where does Bitcoin fit into all of this? How does it actually work?
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What's this blockchain thing everyone keeps talking about?
The blockchain is at the heart of it all. It's like a giant digital ledger. It keeps track of every single Bitcoin transaction. And here's the cool part. This ledger isn't kept in one place. It's distributed across a network of computers all over the world.
So, like a global spreadsheet everyone can see.
That's a good way to think about it. And the people who maintain this ledger are called miners.
Miners, like the ones who dig for gold.
Not quite. These miners verify transactions and add them to the blockchain.
Ah, so they're like the accountants of the Bitcoin world, making sure everything is legit.
You got it. And they use something called cryptography to keep things secure, specifically public and private keys.
Ooh, cryptography. Now we're getting technical.
It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. Think of your public key as your Bitcoin address. Anyone can send Bitcoin to your public key.
Like your bank account number.
Exactly. And your private key is like your secret PI. Only you know it, and you use it to authorize spending Bitcoin from your address.
Ah, so it's a two-key system to make sure only the rightful owner can access their Bitcoin. Pretty clever.
It is, and it's one of the key innovations of Bitcoin.
So how do these miners get rewarded for all their hard work? Do they get, like, bonus Bitcoin points?
Well, they do earn Bitcoin, but they have to solve complex math problems to do so. That process is called mining.
So they're not just keeping track of transactions, they're also solving puzzles.
Exactly. Think of it as a giant global Sudoku competition. The winner gets to add the next block to the blockchain, and they get rewarded in Bitcoin.
Wow, that is a unique way to run a financial system.
It is, and we've only just begun to explore its potential.
I'm ready for more. This
Yeah.
is getting really interesting.
Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground, but let's talk about some potential issues with Bitcoin.
Issues.
Yeah, for example, what happens if two miners solve those complex puzzles at the same time? Like, do we end up with two different versions of the blockchain?
That would be like having two different sets of accounting books.
It would be a mess. But Bitcoin has a solution for that. It's called the longest chain rule.
Okay, what's that?
The network always accepts the blockchain with the most blocks as the official one.
Ah, so it's a race to the top. Longest chain wins.
Exactly. It's like a constant game of king of the hill, and this helps prevent something called double spending.
Double spending, that sounds bad.
It is. Imagine you send someone a Bitcoin, but before the transaction is fully, confirmed, you send that same Bitcoin to someone else.
Wait, but how would that even be possible if every transaction is recorded on the blockchain?
Well, think about it. If both transactions were accepted, you'd be creating money out of thin air, which is basically counterfeiting.
Ah, so the longest chain rule makes it really, really hard to do that. It's like trying to cheat at a card game when everyone can see your hand.
Exactly. Transparency is key here. And there's another unique aspect of Bitcoin that we should talk about: how transactions work. Bitcoin uses something called UTXO, which stands for Unspent Transaction Output.
UTXO. Right, break that down for me.
Okay, imagine you have a $10 bill and you want to buy something for $3.
Okay.
You give the cashier the 10, they give you 7 back, and they keep the 3.
That's how, normal spending works.
Yeah.
So how is UTXO different?
With UTXO, you'd be spending a specific chunk of Bitcoin that adds up to $3. So that chunk gets destroyed, and 2 new chunks are created. One for $3 that goes to the seller, and one for $7 that goes back to you.
So instead of having a running balance in a bank account, it's more like spending, chunks of value?
Yeah, like breaking off pieces of a chocolate bar. Each piece is a UTXO.
Ooh, I like that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about how it works, but let's talk about the history. Who is the mysterious creator behind Bitcoin? Ah, yes, the enigmatic Satoshi Nakamoto.
That name sounds like a superhero.
Well, their creation has definitely had a big impact, but the funny thing is, no one actually knows who they are.
Seriously, it's like a real-life mystery novel.
And their disappearance adds to the whole mystique of Gitcoin.
So we have this revolutionary technology, and it's created by a ghost.
Pretty much. But Satoshi's creation has sparked a whole universe of innovation.
I mean, Bitcoin was just the beginning, right?
Right. It kind of opened the floodgates. Now we have a whole ecosystem of cryptocurrencies and blockchain platforms, each with its own goals and quirks.
It's like once people saw what was possible with Bitcoin, everyone wanted to get in on the action.
Exactly. And one of the most exciting developments is the emergence of platforms like SORA and XOR.
Okay, back to SORA. Yeah. Remember how we were talking about Bitcoin being like digital gold? Well, SOR and XOR are taking things a step further. They're trying to create a whole decentralized democratic economy.
Oh, a whole new economy. That's ambitious.
It is. SORA is built on blockchain tech, but aims to create a system where value is exchanged directly between people. No need for those pesky intermediaries.
Like cutting out the middleman on a massive scale.
Precisely. And XOR is Sora's native token. Think of it like the fuel that powers this new economy.
So it's like the currency of the SORA world. But what about, like, governance? Who makes the decisions in this decentralized world?
That's where things get really interesting. SORA is designed to be community-driven.
So no presidents or CEOs calling the shots?
Nope. XOR holders, they get to have a say in how the platform is run. They can vote on proposals, elect representatives.
So it's like a digital democracy, but instead of voting for politicians, you're voting on how the financial system works.
You got it. It's all about giving people more control over their economic lives. But it's not just about creating a new currency. SORA also has these things called tokenized assets.
Tokenized assets. Okay, now we're getting really futuristic.
It is pretty cool. Imagine taking any real-world asset, like, say, a piece of real estate or a stock or even like a famous painting.
Okay, I'm following.
And you represent that as a digital token on the SORA platform.
So it's like having a digital deed to your house or a digital stock certificate. But what's the advantage of doing that?
Well, once it's a token, it can be traded and exchanged just like any other cryptocurrency. It makes it much easier to invest in things that were previously, out of reach for most people.
So you can potentially own a tiny piece of a skyscraper or a Van Gogh with the SORA.
Exactly. It's like having a stock market for everything.
That's incredible. But what about security? Isn't it risky having all these digital assets floating around?
Security is definitely a top priority for SORA. It uses the same cryptographic techniques that secure Bitcoin. Your assets are safe, only you can access them. But of course, with any new technology, there are challenges.
Right. There's no such thing as a perfect system.
Exactly. One challenge is adoption. Getting people to understand and actually use this new way of thinking about money, it takes time. And then there's the whole regulatory landscape, which is constantly shifting. Governments are still trying to figure out how to deal with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, it's the Wild West out there right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to stake their claim.
Yeah.
But even with those challenges, the potential of SORA, of a decentralized economy, is just, wow, it's huge.
It's definitely a vision worth exploring. And remember, we're really just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to discover about the impact of all of this.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because next we're going to look at the bigger picture, how Bitcoin and blockchain could change society as we know it. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive. Time to tackle the big question. How might Bitcoin and this whole blockchain thing change society? Like the really big picture.
Right. We've talked about the tech stuff, the money part, but now zoom out.
Exactly, because this isn't just about geeky code. This is about how we interact, how we see value, maybe even how we govern ourselves.
It's a paradigm shift, potentially.
Love that term, paradigm shift. Okay, so let's start with the good stuff. What are the potential upsides?
Well, blockchain tech, at its core, it's about transparency, right? And accountability, like we talked about with that permanent record.
Yeah, no more hiding things in the shadows. Everything's out in the open.
Exactly. So that can be a powerful tool to fight corruption.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Build trust in institutions. Even hold governments accountable.
Imagine every government expense, every vote on a blockchain for the public to see.
It's a radical idea, but it has the potential to really change how we think about governance, give power back to the people.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. Power to the people. Okay, so more transparency. What else?
Financial inclusion. There are billions of people globally who don't have access to basic banking.
Right, it's a huge problem.
Blockchain can offer solutions. Give them a way to manage money, send remittances securely, even access credit, all without needing a traditional bank.
It's like leveling the playing field, giving everyone a chance to participate in the global economy.
That's the goal. And of course, there's the potential for innovation. We're still in the early days of blockchain tech, so who knows what amazing applications we'll see in the future.
It's like the early days of the internet. Back then, no one could imagine things like social media or streaming services.
Exactly. Blockchain could be just as transformative.
Okay, I'm getting excited just thinking about the possibilities. But we also need to talk about the potential downsides.
Right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are risks. For instance, some people worry about misuse.
Use? Bad actors using the anonymity of cryptocurrencies for illegal things, money laundering, that sort of stuff.
Ah, right. So it's like any powerful tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
Exactly. Another concern is job displacement. As blockchain automates things, certain jobs currently done by humans, might become obsolete.
That's always a worry with new technology. It's like that saying, you can't stop progress.
True. But we need to be mindful of the potential consequences and think about how we can adapt and create new opportunities for people.
We need to make sure everyone benefits from these changes, not just a select few. But here's something I've been wondering about this whole decentralization thing. If there's no central authority, who's really in charge? Doesn't that create chaos?
It's a valid concern. It's a balancing act, right? Decentralization, it offers benefits like resilience, nobody can just shut down the system, and resistance to censorship. But it does require new ways of thinking about governance.
It's like trying to run a city without a mayor. It's going to require a lot of collaboration and consensus building. For sure. And we can't ignore the environmental impact.
Right, all those computers mining Bitcoin, that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, sustainability is a key issue. But there are efforts to make blockchain technology more energy efficient.
Okay, good. Because we need solutions that are good for the planet, not just good for our wallets.
Absolutely.
So we've seen the good, the bad, and the maybe even a bit scary. The Bitcoin and blockchain revolution, it's definitely complicated.
It is. There are a lot of unknowns. But it's clear this technology is powerful, and it has the potential to change the world in some very fundamental ways.
It's a call to action for all of us. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those tough questions.
The future of blockchain, it's still being written, and we all get to be a part of it.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of Bitcoin and blockchains. It's been quite a journey. We've covered a lot of ground.
We started with the basics of Bitcoin, went through those crazy price swings.
We talked about Satoshi Nakamoto, the mysterious creator, and the potential for a future where the economy is run by the people, not by big institutions.
And we touched on platforms like SORA trying to build that future.
If you've enjoyed this deep dive, keep learning. There's a whole universe of information out there.
And who knows, maybe we'll do another deep dive in the future and see where this whole blockchain thing has taken us.
It's going to be an exciting ride, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep on diving deep.